There's nothing there that actually
moves dead people.
It's my husband, Michael. He passed away 4 years ago this April, and I looked him up, and he's still on there.
And the way they kicked it was through cold turkey. They just locked themselves in a room and would tell people, I don't care what I do, what I say, don't let me out. This way Miles Davis kicked it, John Coltrane, John Lennon did it that way, and he wrote a song about it called Cold Turkey. This heroin, the heroin addicts of today,
They
no
can't
way.
kick it that
No,
way.
they can't. No. They
Liable
kick it
to
that
die
way.
if they
Yes.
get closed up
oh my
without.
God. Yeah, they can't.
That's
I
why
don't know
you
what they're
have
doing.
the methadone clinics, which gives them something like heroin and keeps them from dying.
Lets them get through the day.
We
So
ought
I
to make
call-
you a senator, I guess.
Well, I guess so. We can do that. I'll give everybody something free. What you want?
Said that.
What you want?
I want a free steak every day for breakfast.
Turkey and everything else. I was listening to some people on talk radio talk about the Democratic Party, their debates and the things they're talking about, free this and free that. And of course, the question comes up, I think they even put it to Bernie Sanders, how are you going to pay for this? He gave an estimate on, I think for Medicare at all, $30 trillion.
Oh my
I can't count that high.
Who's going to pay for that?
Where's that going to come from? I can't count that.
No,
it's
I
ridiculous.
can't
There's
either.
too many zeros. I think after the 6 0, my mind just shuts down. That's an amazing number, 30 trillion. And he's only talking about one program.
Medicare for all.
Right. And then the rest of the question, Bernie Sanders just said, look, well, I can't give you every nickel and dime and stuff. Dude, wait a minute. Excuse me.
Every trillion, 2 trillion, one way or the other. What difference
what
does
is
it
it
make?
Right. What's the differences make? And yet this guy is killing it in these primaries, the Democrats. You're going to nominate a guy to be one of the leaders of the major party in the national elections, and he's promising all this stuff, and he can't tell you
How he's going to get the money.
where he's going to get the money. And,
He'll worry about that later.
right, I guess so.
First comes the giveaway and then the payoff.
And then people want to ask, well, why do all these young people all like Bernie? Look, I like free stuff. It's really simple politics. I like free stuff. You stand outside there and say, I'll give you a free Dunkin' Donut. I'm putting these headphones down. I'm going to give my free Dunkin' Donut.
That's right.
I really begin to wonder, though, if he's nominated, why they really think that guy could beat Donald Trump.
Because of the public schools, I guess, are churning out people that don't really think.
I would agree with you. I think that a lot of the universities and colleges, there's that suppression of free speech because we've seen, been filmed, how some of these so-called Antifa guys, they dress up in black. By the way, wouldn't that they follow the fascists
Exactly.
in Italy? And
The
they cover-
anti-fascists
Right,
are
they cover-
fascists.
Right, they cover their faces up like the Klan used to do, commit acts of violence.
That's right.
But they're progressive. It's okay for them to do it. But if you're a bunch of white guys doing it, stuff around your head and wearing white, you can't do it. It's the same thing, people. Fascism. And yet we're seeing that in colleges and universities, and we're seeing conservative students almost scared to speak up, scared to speak their minds.
Well, are we going to interview John, you think?
Let's interview him. I want him to know if he's running for an office and what he's going to give me for it.
What's going on with the marijuana bill? Which line
White.
you got? White? You're up.
Okay. I'll go with that.
Can you hear us now?
If you can hear me, I can still talk. It's not a problem. We'll run with that.
Well, tell me what's going on with the marijuana bill.
I spoke with a senator down in fact, we were going to talk to. They haven't done a complete head count, and
It's close.
in the Senate. It is close. It's going to be a closely fought battle probably this year.
Well, let me stop you right there and tell our audience that if they want to stop the legalization of marijuana in Kentucky, they ought to call this number 1-800-372-7181 because it's going to be really close, and your call may make the difference. The American Medical Association said there's not one good article that indicates there's any medical indication for marijuana. None.
What he told me is even if the bill that passed in the House came to his committee, that's good. He would receive a lot of pressure. He said, because they are putting the pressure on and they're pushing hard. The other side is pushing hard. If we want to stop it, we have to actually make our voices heard and make them heard often.
There's a lot of money
Yes, sir.
in legalizing marijuana. There are a lot of people that, just like people that are selling dope of any form, they're going to get a lot of money. There's a lot of money in selling dope of any kind, including marijuana. That's why there's pressure. And of course, all of the automobile accidents and people get killed on the highway, which happens in every state that legalizes marijuana, they're not worried too much about that, I guess. They just want money in their own pocket. So let me give you that. Just call this number and tell them vote no on marijuana. All marijuana bills.
Okay.
All marijuana bills. So the number is 1-800-372-7181. And it's very easy to do. You call it, some lady answers the phone and says, "May I help you?" And you say, "Yeah." You give them your name, and they will ask you your address maybe. You say, "I want to leave a message for my state representative, for my elected officials," all of them, state representative and state senator, just all the elected representatives. And you don't have to know their name or anything. You just tell the operator your address, and she can look up who your elected official, and just tell them, "I want to leave a message for all my elected officials to vote no on marijuana, vote no on gambling, expanded gambling. Also, send a copy to the leadership in the House and in the Senate, all the leadership, and they will get the message out, and that'll change the course of history. One little call like that, if everybody makes it, it will make a huge difference."
That's what I was told from Senator Alvarado. And Senator Alvarado is a medical doctor. And he'd already given this very day that I talked to him, he'd already given an interview. I saw it on the internet. He'd given an interview to the Lexington station. And he said they have not gone through trials or anything.
There's no objective evidence.
And to speak to your point, Corbin, a lot of these drugs, marijuana included, they've increased the level of addictability. For instance, in the marijuana, they've increased the THC, so they've made it a whole lot more potent than it used to be.
And there's no doubt about that.
Wow. Yep. So that means if they legalize, there are going to be more and more people killed.
Well, the legalizing thing is just the door when it opens up. It's a matter of looking around and seeing how hard it is going to be to actually stop that.
And there's going to be more and more traffic accidents because there is in all the states that have legalized.
And insurance is going to go up. We talked about that before. I've got a brother, he's a manager in one of these companies, and I'm sure that he could probably verify for me, just right off the top of the head, you have an accident in a warehouse with a forklift or whatever, instantly you're going to have a drug test. You put the whole company liable for, in theory, you could knock over a whole rack and kill a bunch of people. It's possible.
Doc, let me say something real quick. I just got off the phone with the senator. We have some very serious equipment issues. He can't call in. And right now he's going into an important...
Okay.
Did
you talk with the station about it?
They're working on it right now.
Okay, great.
He said that if we're still talking or still on the air for the next 20, 25 minutes, give him a call back, see if he can call in.
Okay.
But more than likely, he won't be out of his meeting by that time.
I'm glad we got John. You've been down there several times.
I have been down there. Frankly, I know why they're excited to have gotten it out of the House. I'm excited that we've another supporter. They just had another state election. This should be worrying some Democrats because the Republicans still keep winning. Rush Limbaugh, I just happened to catch. I listen to a lot of things, but Rush Limbaugh happened to mention that in Kentucky, they just won a race that nobody had won. A Democrat had been in that office.
Yeah, that's right.
For 33 years or whatever. And the more you see the Democrat stage of players, you just shake your hand. I think it was appropriate when President Trump got up and he said, okay, yeah, the stock market is falling, but it may be in part due to some of these actual debates. Look at the policies.
What you're saying. These people that want to make Medicare for everybody and it's going to cost trillions of dollars, and they have no idea how they're going to raise the money.
And What sane person is going to say, I got billions of dollars, I'm going to invest it here in the United States? Oh, wait a minute. I got some nut job named Elizabeth Warren up there saying, I hate billionaires. How do you know she's just not going to just...
That what she said?
The problem. She is very anti-billionaire to the point to where Forbes magazine, they actually sent an editorial on it. She's constantly harping on how bad billionaires are. Not millionaires, billionaires are. Oh, this candidate, he accepted money from the billionaire.
What about anybody that works? I guess she hates them. And the more they work, the more she hates them.
I think anybody who's financially successful, she seems to think there's some type of criminal in some fashion, form, or another. But she's really no different from Buttigieg or Sanders. Fundamentally all the same.
They're against people working, making a living, being successful, and the American dream.
The old-fashioned American work ethic. You work hard, put your nose to the grindstone, etc. No. Their whole attitude is, hey, you're not doing well financially because of this guy over here. He's rich.
He's cramping your style.
And I bring that up because when President Trump was in India, they verified that there was a Indian business person who made a decision to invest millions of dollars down in Alabama. He obviously feels sort of comfortable doing that. Thinking, well, under Trump, we ain't going to have no nationalization. I ain't got to worry about that.
Right.
Seizing my property and stuff. But if Bernie Sanders is president, hey, man, we'll just wait.
That's the kind of thing that the stock market actually does respond. I've watched this over several years.
Oh, really?
If a president can come across, you could have the worst things happen, and if they could come across in a positive manner, it actually does help. But what helps even more is if they come across in a positive manner and they've got a good record on top of it.
And I think not only what you just said relates to the stock market, but also foreign policy matters. Foreign policy matters. That guy in North Korea, he's crazy as a loon. But at the same time, he's got some sense, and I'm sure he's saying, well, with Obama, I can cross the red line, nothing's going to happen. Yeah. Remember that old thing in the middle? Yeah. Don't cross this red line, he crossed the red line. Now what are you going to do, bro? You got somebody like Trump in there. He doesn't even tell you don't cross to the red line. You just know, I best not cross the red line. And bam, you saw what happened to that guy in Iran. But he was just that type of guy. He brings off that respect, message, whatever. Respect. Don't mess with me, man. Don't do it. You're going to be seeing Jesus early.
Hopefully Jesus. We'll put it that way.
But yeah, I agree with you on that point.
Any other bills here?
I think this one is a good one to bring up, Doc, about
the female mutilation.
Yes.
That's part of Sharia law. They want to mutilate the genital of women, all girls.
Alice Walker actually wrote a book about it. Now, I'm telling you, today, Alice Walker is a radical feminist. She wrote the book, The Color Purple. And she wrote a book about this very issue right here.
Oh, she did?
But that was like 12 years ago. Yeah. She did that today. She probably characterizes it as Islamophobe. And I think that's one reason why a lot of times bills like this aren't really discussed widely, because the left is going to bring up, not liberals, but the left, oh, you hate Muslims, you're Islamophobic.
Oh, you love America, we hate.
Let's go talk to this little girl, 9, 10, 12 years old, bleeding to death in the hospital because some nut job tried to cut off her thing there. Islamophobia, what are you talking about, man? You can't mutilate people. That's not the way we do it here.
Now, we talked about expanded gambling. They're not going to make any money on expanded gambling, except what they make the gamblers. So the voters are going to pay for all this benefit they say they're going to come from expanded gambling.
I just got one question. When they talk about, well, we want to expand gambling, what's the reason they give?
Money. They want money. There's out-of-town, out-of-state people that are making millions on these riverboat gambling and all that. They are all owned by people in New York City or something, and they're making big money on those gambling boats.
It's really sort of pitiful if you look at it. That's the way you want to generate revenue. Can we talk about bringing more companies and more business corporations into the company? Have more people go to work.
I've used this example numerous times. If it's just about the money, why don't we just legalize prostitution? I'm sure we could make some tax money off of that.
Okay, so we're talking about expanded gambling. Of course, gun control, they're trying to confiscate guns, at least in Virginia, and they are able to stop that and keep their guns.
I don't know if you heard about the demonstration that the Second Right Amendment right activists did with their guns, showed up with their guns at Frankfort. This left-wing newspaper, local newspaper, Leo, criticized that. And they also put up this cartoon where they were trying to say, and I'm trying to be gentle when I say this, men who aren't total real men, who are lacking in a particular physical area. Those are the type of men who went to Frankfort with those guns. Right. That's the level they went down to. Send the Leo. Go see it, folks. Here's the thing that gets me, though. Remember now, this is a left-wing thing. The Black Panther Party did that at California legislature. In Chicago, they did that. They showed up armed. One time, one of their members came out of jail. They showed up armed and escorted the brother to his car. They went to the California legislature. They were armed. Carbines. Walked in the California legislature. They were escorting the late Dr. Betty Shabazz, Malcolm's widow. So, would they have said that about Huey P. Newton? No. Once again, the left clearly shows its hypocrisy, its double standard. Hey, if you're with us, that's okay. But if you're over here, no, it's not okay. They're doing the same thing. Bear that in mind about that hypocrisy with so-called progressives and leftists and all this other kind of stuff.
Okay, and then they want the transgender people or the cross-dressers to play in sports.
Yeah, women's sports. Guys who are born male, testosterone, testicles, the whole bit, biological males, then all of a sudden they decide, they wake up one day and say, I don't want to be called James, I want to be called Jenny now. Put some berets in their head. Now they're saying they're girls and they want to compete with girls. Up in Connecticut, they're taking away all sorts of scholarship opportunities from ladies because they're tearing them up in those sports. That's a serious thing that we have to really talk about publicly because, again, if we bring it up, well, you're homophobic.
The media is being paid to say things like that.
Yeah.
I've pretty much decided anytime you attach the word phobic to something,
there's something wrong. Okay.
You need to check that out real quick. And let me just say this real quick, too. Also, when you put that phobic or phobia at the end, doesn't it shut down discussion? Because you're crazy. Yeah, you're crazy. Yeah. You're nuts. Discussion's over. Right. You're Sybil. I can't talk to you, Sybil. I only know who I'm talking to. Is it Sybil or somebody else? Right. Shuts down all debate and discussion.
Now, the last thing here, I guess we'll have time for, is that if homosexuals realize that they're going to get AIDS and different things, then they want to get out of the homosexual lifestyle, and they go to a Christian counselor that can get them out, well, they want to pass a law against that.
Is it the government's role to be involved in private therapy?
Well, you've heard of the deep state. They hate America. And they hate people. Anytime Christians are helping somebody, well, they're against it.
They want to prove that it can't be done. Well, actually, they don't want to prove that it can't be done. They want to make sure that there doesn't become any evidence that anybody else can look at.
Yeah. I knew a guy who converted from homosexual lifestyle. The homosexuals are against him. And the other thing is, this is something that they just don't want people that have a problem to get help. Okay, I guess we're about out of time. We'll have to get Senator Alvarado back another time. God bless you. Tune in again next week for the rest of the news. Hello, this is Frank Simon with the rest of the news. And we have the Secretary of State on the program with us, Michael Adams. Mr. Adams, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks, I'm very grateful.
Okay, we wanted to ask you a few questions, see if you could help us understand some of this. First of all, we were wondering, we were told there are a lot of dead people put back on the voter rolls. Is that a problem or not?
I'm not aware of people who are dead being put back on the rolls. That would be news to me. If anyone has any evidence of that, please let me know.
We had followed this up. I'm John Brewer. I've spoken to you before as well. This is prior to the election, back when you were in the campaign and stuff. You campaigned on a lot of reform and stuff. So actually, we're very interested in hearing what kind of reforms have been made at this point. What is in the House? What is in the Senate? How can we help you? That's one of our most important questions.
Well, great. Thank you for the question. I just got sworn in 2 months ago. You can't build Rome in a day, and what we have coming as well. So, first of all, on my third day in office, I introduced new legislation to require a photo ID to vote in all Kentucky elections. One of the biggest challenges I had during my campaign was explain to people that our law currently doesn't require a photo ID to vote, and people didn't believe me because that notion is so dumb that people thought, how could our law have that big a loophole? But it's actually true. I used to serve on the State Board of Elections before I ran for this office, which is the chief election official. I learned this up close and personal as a member of the Board of Elections, that in fact, our law has a loophole. The poll worker does not have to ask for a photo ID, and if she does ask, the voter can simply refuse. That to
Wow.
me is absurd. Our neighboring states have passed photo ID. States around the country have passed photo ID. My wife is from Rhode Island, which is a very liberal state. They have a Democratic governor and delegation to Congress. They haven't voted for a Republican president since Reagan. They have photo ID. This is not a Republican issue or a conservative issue. It's just a simple common sense solution for ballot integrity. So I helped write a bill. It passed the Senate end of January, went to the House, made some changes, and then they passed their version of the bill earlier this week. The version that the House and Senate passed, those versions are different.
They'll be reconciled, probably.
I expect that some members of both chambers will meet in their own committee and rewrite the bill to make everybody happy, and then it'll go to the governor's desk in short order. The governor has not said whether he will sign or veto the bill, but he's hinted strongly that he doesn't support it. Whether he will sign it and be overridden or just simply not sign it and let it become law, I don't know. But one thing I'm certain of is this will be the law very soon.
Oh, that's great.
This is Cindy Marlow. Do you happen to know the House bill number and the Senate bill number by any chance?
I do. It's Senate Bill 2.
Okay.
And the reason it's Senate Bill 2, every session, each House names its top so many priorities, 5 or 10 priorities, and they assign the bill numbers based on their priorities. And this was literally the second highest priority of the state Senate.
Wow.
That's why they named this Senate Bill 2.
That's great.
Senate Bill 1 is the Sanctuary Cities Bill. They know that's very important to Attorney General Cameron, and they know this bill is very important to me. And so those are their two highest priorities in the Senate. I'm confident that we'll have an agreed-to version of the bill fairly soon. It'll go to the governor. We've got the votes to override him if we have to do that. I think he probably will veto it, but this thing passed 29-9 in the Senate and 63-35 in the House. We've got the numbers to override him easily.
Boy, that's great. Now, I know somebody that has died and their name is still on the voter roll.
So do I.
Let me address that. Your question was about people who are dead being put back on. I'm not aware of anyone who's been taken off being put back on, but here's what I can tell you. A year ago, the Lexington Herald Leader ran a story. The Lexington Herald Leader is no friend of conservatives.
Right.
They ran a story. They did a thorough review, and they ran an expose about problems with the Secretary of State, who was my predecessor. And they said that because of the inaction of my predecessor in refusing to keep us in compliance with the law that requires us to maintain our voter rolls, we had 300,000 people on our rolls that shouldn't be there legally. Whether it's because they've passed away, whether it's because they've moved to some other state and re-registered to vote in some other state. There are various reasons provided in the law for someone to be removed from our voter roll. But according, again, to the Lexington Herald Leader, this hadn't been adequately done. And we had approximately, depending on your count, as little as 5% of our voter file, or as many as 10% of our voter file, is phantom voters. That's a real problem for election integrity, especially with no photo ID requirement. You've got a perfect storm if you've got no photo ID requirement and some 5 or 10% of the voter file is false. One of the biggest issues I ran on, of course, one was photo ID, but the other was to clean up our election rolls. That story ran in January of 2019. That number now has increased. We now think it's more like 400,000 people.
Oh,
again,
my
it's been
goodness.
another year. The numbers pile up. So right now, I'm in court. We've got 2 different cases in court. They're in different courts, and they're in different directions. We have a federal lawsuit. The Secretary of State was sued by Judicial Watch. The U.S. Department of Justice intervened. They agreed with Judicial Watch. They got a decision against my predecessor, and she agreed to an order from the judge to begin the process of cleaning up the rolls. According to a whistleblower complaint that was filed by Jared Deering, who in his prior career was a Democratic operative, so he's not a Republican either. But according even to him, in a whistleblower complaint, he alleged that despite the order from the federal judge, my predecessor had slow-walked the process of cleaning up the rolls. So that's part of why they're so far behind the times and inaccurate, is they weren't maintained for a decade, and then even after the judge ordered it, it's been slow-walked. It's a big problem. On the other hand, we have a state court judge who's ruled the other direction. The board began the process late last year of actually getting these rolls cleaned up. They were sued by the state Democratic Party. They won at least their first round in state court. So part of the challenge for me, my background, I'm an election lawyer, represented conservative causes and members of Congress and governors and so forth, Vice President Pence. That's the background I use to run for this job. Fortunately, that's given me the skill set, I hope, to take these cases on and work out some sort of arrangement where we can satisfy all the concerns people have, but also get these rolls cleaned up. I'm confident I will have these rolls cleaned up by the end of my term, but my goal is to get it done a whole lot faster than that.
Well, thank you. Can I ask you something? Thank you for all that information. That's amazing. We thank you for what you're doing with the lawsuit, everything. But remember right before the election when, I think it was in October, that your predecessor, she put back how many thousands?
I think 150,000.
150,000 more people back on the road that were taken off because they weren't supposed to be there. Do you know anything about what happened there and why they were allowed to do that?
Let me issue a slight correction there. These people were not taken off the rolls. These people were put on a separate list of inactive voters.
Oh, okay.
So that if they did come and vote, they could be notified that they were not in compliance, that they were scheduled to be taken off the rolls, and if they updated their voter registration information, or if they voted, then they would be restored. In other words, these are people who should not be removed. The board was not trying to knock them off the rolls because our state law does not allow the rolls to be purged before an election. This was last fall. I think October, you said, around that time period. So the Board of Elections was not actually taking people off the roll. They're not allowed to by law. What they were trying to do is help the voters by making the voters aware that they were going to be coming off soon, so that they could alert their county clerk or alert the Board of Elections and make sure that they updated their information and stayed on. This notion that Matt Bevin or anyone was trying to keep people off the rolls before the election just wasn't true. But to your question, there were not people put back on the rolls who were taken off. These people were not taken off the rolls. They're still there. The vast, vast majority of them didn't vote, didn't show up, didn't update their registration information, and they're some of the phantom voters that we have to this day.
But my question to this is, and I don't know if you've explained this, I don't remember if you explained it prior to this, it seems to me that there ought to be a closer working relationship between the vital statistics that keeps track. I buried my mother in October. I know she was certainly still on the rolls. And it seems to me like there ought to be a closer relationship between